Imagine this, fam. Your older brother's up millions, sitting in mansions, driving Maybachs, and flexing on the charts, while you're still stuck in the trenches fighting to survive on the same blocks y'all swore you'd escape together. Yeah, that's the reality for Bway Youngie, the real blood brother of NBA YoungBoy. And this story right here, it's about loyalty, pride, and how fame can twist family ties until they snap. Now, I'm not talking about no fake brother from the block situation. Nah, this is real blood. Same father, same pain, same Baton Rouge upbringing. These two came up together in one of the most dangerous cities in America, a place where trust gets you killed and loyalty is tested every day. Before the chains, before the billboard plaques, before the mansions, it was just YoungBoy and Bway running the streets side by side, dodging cops, ducking beef, and dreaming of a better life. Back then, they had nothing but each other. When YoungBoy was just a hungry kid trying to make it, Bway was there. They shared everything: food, clothes, and even the same dream: make it out the mud. To Bway, his big brother wasn't just family. He was the hope that one day they'd both escape the pain and finally live free. But fast forward to now, and that dream feels dead. YoungBoy's sitting on millions, running empires from behind private gates, while Bway Youngie is still in Baton Rouge, catching cases and fighting for his freedom with a public defender who barely knows his name. The contrast is insane. What really makes people talk is how different their lives look now. YoungBoy's out here buying cars for friends, flying out models, helping other artists get on, but somehow, the one person who came up with him, the one person who shares his blood, is still left behind in the same hood they once prayed to escape. And the streets? They're watching. They're asking, how you the realest in rap but left your own brother starving? This ain't just gossip. This is a full-blown family crisis, and it's raising serious questions about what happens when fame replaces loyalty. Because if your own blood can't eat with you after you make it, then what does success even mean? This whole situation between NBA YoungBoy and his brother Bway Youngie runs way deeper than money or fame. It's psychological, fam. When someone grows up in pain, surrounded by chaos, and somehow makes it out, something changes inside them. They start believing everyone else should be able to make it too. And that's where the disconnect begins. When you come from nothing, you develop this survivor's mentality. You start thinking, if I did it, they can do it too. But that mindset forgets one crucial thing. Not everybody's built the same, and not everyone catches the same break. Some people get talent, others get timing, and most don't get either. So when YoungBoy left Baton Rouge and stepped into a life of private jets, platinum records, and million-dollar deals, he wasn't just leaving the hood, he was leaving behind a piece of himself. He went from survival mode to self-preservation mode. Let me break it down for you. Success rewires how people see family. When you go from poverty to power, it's not just your bank account that changes. It's your mentality, your circle, even your sense of safety. You start cutting ties with anything that reminds you of where you came from, the pain, the struggle, the trauma. And that's what Bway Youngie represents to him, the past. The life YoungBoy fought to escape. The dirt, the danger, the drama. Every time he looks at his brother, he's reminded of who he used to be. And that's not easy to face once you've built a world of peace and luxury. But here's the real contradiction that's got people calling foul. YoungBoy still looks out for dozens of people. Friends, homies, old street partners, giving them money. Buying cars, putting them on payroll. Yet somehow his own brother is sitting in a Louisiana jail cell, relying on a public defender while facing charges that could bury him for decades. That's where the streets are calling it cold. Because you can buy everyone around you new chains and new homes. But if your blood brother is behind bars, still struggling to survive, can you really say you made it out? It's not even just about money anymore. It's about morality and loyalty. People are starting to ask the hard questions. Did fame change YoungBoy's heart? Or was this always who he really was underneath the music? At this point, it's not just neglect. It's a cold, deliberate choice. NBA YoungBoy is out here blessing his crew with chains, houses, and designer cars, while his real brother, Bway Youngie, is rotting away behind bars with a public defender who's probably juggling 50 other cases. That's not love. That's abandonment dressed in success. Let's talk facts, because Bway's situation is tragic. The kid's locked up in Texas, facing some heavy charges, We're talking about the kind that could end his freedom for decades. Word from the streets and bits of court paperwork floating online show that his case isn't small, it's serious business. The type that requires a high-powered legal team just to stand a chance. But instead of having the best lawyer money can buy, Bway's left in the trenches, fighting for his life with a court-appointed defender. A lawyer who probably doesn't even have the time to learn his name properly. Now here's the real gut punch. YoungBoy spends more on jewelry in a single month than it would cost to hire his brother, a top-tier attorney. We've seen him drop 6 figures on a new chain without blinking, buy new cars like they're sneakers, and even fund random artists' careers. But when it comes to his own blood, the one person who shared that same Baton Rouge struggle, silence. No lawyer, no bail, no lifeline. The street's been whispering about it for months, but now they're speaking loud. They're saying, "You take care of your homies, but not your brother?" That's backwards, bro. Because where we come from, family always comes first. You don't pick clout chasers and crew members over your own blood. That's a line you don't cross, no matter how rich you get. And this is what's driving people wild. The clear contrast between how YoungBoy treats his friends versus his brother. We've all seen it. Him buying cars for his homies, flying them on private jets, putting them on payroll, and making sure everyone around him lives like kings. Meanwhile, Bway Youngie's sitting in a Texas cell, hoping his overworked public defender can save him from a decades-long sentence. That image alone has the whole internet divided. Half the people defending YoungBoy, saying he's done enough for people, and the other half saying, nah, this is foul. Family should always come before fame. Because loyalty isn't about who eats with you when you're winning, it's about who you make sure eats when you've already made it out. And if your brother's starving while your friends are dripping in diamonds, that's not loyalty. That's betrayal with a smile. Let's keep it real, fam. NBA YoungBoy is one of the most generous rappers in the game when it comes to his circle. He's got people around him who don't rap, don't manage, don't even lift a finger for his career, but they're still getting paid. That's loyalty in his world. He's bought houses for his friends, taken care of their families, and even made sure their kids are set for life. He treats his homies like blood. But when it comes to his real blood, Bway Youngie, the one who shared that same dirty floor, same food and same dreams, YoungBoy's nowhere to be found. It's wild because Bway's not just going through hard times. He's fighting for his life in Texas, facing serious time behind bars. And instead of having the best legal defense money can buy, he's stuck with a public defender. The kind of lawyer the state gives you when you can't afford one. The kind that has 50 cases at once and barely remembers your name. Meanwhile, YoungBoy's out here dropping 6 figures on new jewelry, blessing random dudes from the crew, and flying strangers to his private compounds. It's like he forgot the one rule that every hood lives by. Family comes first. Now let's talk about the psychology behind this, because it's deep. Sometimes when people make it big, they start feeling more loyal to the folks who were around during their rise than to those who were there before they rose. It's like they attach love to progress. The friends who saw you win become symbols of your success, while the family who knew your pain becomes a reminder of your past. That's exactly what's happening here. YoungBoy's crew represents his new life, the fame, the houses, the control. But Bway represents the struggle, the trauma, the things he's trying to erase. The problem is, when you start cutting off your roots, you lose a part of what made you real in the first place. Because in the street code, there's one law you don't break: family first. You can beef with friends, cut ties with fake homies, and even disown business partners. But blood is blood. That's something that's supposed to stay solid no matter what. YoungBoy came from these same trenches, learned these same codes, preached these same principles in his music. He's always rapped about loyalty, pain, and staying true to the ones who held him down. But now, his actions are starting to sound off-key. The fans in Baton Rouge are proud of his success, no doubt. He beat the odds, survived the streets, and built an empire. But the way he's treating his own brother has the hood side-eyeing his every move. Because if he can leave his own flesh and blood behind, what does that really say about his heart? It's not about money anymore. It's about morals. You can't preach loyalty in every song and then ignore your brother's cries for help. Now let's flip the lens. Imagine what this looks like through Bway's eyes. He's sitting in a Texas jail cell, cold cement, no privacy, counting the same 4 walls every day. His brother's name is plastered all over billboards, YouTube, and magazine covers, while he's stuck begging a court-appointed lawyer to care about his case. He probably thinks back to the early days. Both of them broke, sharing meals, dreaming together about how they'd change their lives. Back then, they made promises. When we make it out, we both gone shine. But now one's living in mansions, while the other can't even call home freely. That's got to mess with your head, man. That's not just disappointment. That's emotional abandonment. Because nothing cuts deeper than watching the person you love the most act like you don't exist anymore. The pain, the anger, the confusion, all of that's building inside Bway. And it's only a matter of time before it explodes. Your own brother has the money, the power and the connections to change your life forever. But he's choosing not to. That's the brutal truth behind Bway Youngie's pain. And if you've ever seen the documentary clips where he speaks on his situation, you can feel it. Not just in his voice, but in his eyes. That pain ain't fake. It's the kind that sits in your chest and eats at you every night. He's not just fighting court dates and paperwork. He's battling the heartbreak of being abandoned by the one person who was supposed to ride for him no matter what. And when that abandonment comes from your own blood, it hits different. The psychological toll of something like this runs deep, fam. When your family, the one person who knows your struggle, turns their back on you during your darkest chapter, it breaks you in ways no enemy could. It makes you question everything you thought you understood about love, loyalty, and trust. It creates this scar that never really heals. Because if your own blood doesn't see you worth saving, who will? Now let's talk facts, the legal reality behind Bway's fight. Having a public defender instead of a private attorney isn't just unlucky, it's life-changing. Especially when you're facing serious federal-level charges like he is. Public defenders are overworked, underpaid, and drowning in caseloads. They're good people trying to help, but they don't have the time, resources, or focus that top-dollar lawyers bring to the table. A private attorney, the kind of representation NBA YoungBoy could easily afford, comes with investigators, expert witnesses, and strategy sessions designed to save lives, not just cut deals. That's the difference between coming home and losing decades of your life to the system. And here's the part that makes this whole story sting. YoungBoy probably spends more on studio time or one piece of jewelry in a month than it would cost to get his brother that kind of elite legal defense. He's got the money for chains, Maybachs, mansions, and payroll for half his entourage. But when it comes to the one person who shares his bloodline, silence, nothing. No lawyer, no bail, no support. And trust, the streets are watching all of this. They see every flashy purchase, every flex online, and they remember who's missing from the picture. Because when you abandon your own blood for reasons that don't even make sense, especially when you got the resources to help, it's not about money anymore. It's about character, and that's what people don't forget. Because real ones know, you can give your friends houses and cars, but if your own brother's behind bars with a court-appointed lawyer, you failed where it matters most. What really gets people heated is how YoungBoy treats randoms in his circle better than he treats his brother. We've all seen it. He's got people on payroll who don't even lift a finger. People whose only job is to hang around and provide energy, not effort. He's bought cars for guys who weren't even around when he was broke. Paid rent for folks who never risked a thing for him. But Bway, the same kid who grew up beside him, who protected him in the trenches, who shared every struggle before the world knew YoungBoy never broke again. He's forgotten, left behind to rot with a lawyer that can't even return his calls. That's not just neglect. That's a choice, a cold, deliberate decision to prioritize the new life over the old one. It's success rewriting loyalty in real time, and the sad part? This happens all the time in the industry. When people blow up, they start to feel like they owe more to the folks who were around during their rise, the ones who witnessed the glow-up, than to the ones who were there before it all started. They start associating family with pain, with struggle, with who they used to be, and success convinces them that cutting ties means moving forward. But that's the trap fame sets. It tricks you into thinking peace means distance, when sometimes peace just means healing what you broke. Now the fans are torn. Some still defend YoungBoy, saying he's doing what he needs to for his sanity, while others say this proves he's lost the loyalty he once rapped about. Either way, his silence speaks louder than any verse, because in a world where loyalty's supposed to be everything, NBA YoungBoy's treatment of his brother is starting to look like betrayal disguised as growth. And that leaves one question hanging heavy in the air. When YoungBoy looks in the mirror, does he really see a man who made it, or a man who left his blood behind to drown? Stay tuned, because this story isn't just about two brothers. It's about what success really costs when loyalty gets left behind. Here's where things get real ugly. NBA YoungBoy's entire image is built on being real, being loyal, and never forgetting where he came from. But the streets of Baton Rouge are starting to whisper something different now. Because while his friends are eating good, flying private, and living off his name, his own brother Bway is still trapped in the same pain, the same trenches, the same system they both swore to escape. See, YoungBoy's friends represent his success story. They're the proof that he made it. But Bway represents something he doesn't want to remember. The struggle, the grind, the nights when there wasn't enough food, and the reality that not everyone from their block got to make it out alive. There's also that twisted mindset a lot of successful people fall into, where they start believing their family should be grateful just for the association. The thinking goes like, Bway benefits just from being my brother. My name alone puts him on. But that's not love. That's ego disguised as justification. Family isn't about what your name can do for someone. It's about what you're willing to do for them when it counts. And in Baton Rouge, that's a sacred rule. The people there are watching this whole situation unfold, and they're not impressed. In the hood, abandoning your blood is one of the worst sins you can commit. It breaks the unwritten law that every real one grows up learning. Family first. Always. Folks who've known both brothers since they were just kids running through the same streets are shaking their heads. They remember when Bway had YoungBoy's back, when they were both struggling, when they didn't have anyone but each other. Those same people are saying it straight. How you go from needing your brother's loyalty to ignoring his pain. And they're right to ask. Because now, the streets that once praised YoungBoy for his realness are starting to side-eye him heavy. His reputation in Baton Rouge was built on the idea that he was different, that no matter how rich or famous he got, he'd never forget his roots. But when your own brother is sitting behind bars with no support, those lyrics about keeping it real start to sound hollow. The question everyone's asking now is brutal but fair. How can you claim Baton Rouge when you abandoned the person still trapped in Baton Rouge? It's deeper than just a PR problem. It's about credibility. Because in the hood, your actions speak louder than your bars. And right now, those actions are painting a picture that's hard to ignore. If you can abandon your own brother, if you can let him rot in a cell while you're buying cars for strangers, then how real are you really? What's your loyalty really worth when it doesn't reach home? Now let's talk about what that does to Bway's mind. Because this isn't just legal trouble anymore. This is psychological warfare. When your own blood, the same person who once shared your dreams, your meals, and your hope, turns their back on you when you need them the most, it shatters something inside you. That's a pain no stranger could ever cause. It makes you rethink everything you ever believed about loyalty, about family, about love itself. For Bway, every night behind bars must feel heavier than the last. Not just because of the case he's fighting, but because of the silence coming from his brother's direction. Imagine sitting in a cell, knowing your brother could make one phone call and change your life. But he won't. That's not just betrayal. That's emotional exile. This kind of pain breeds anger, resentment, and eventually hopelessness. And that's what the world is seeing in Bway's eyes in every clip, every letter, every word he speaks about his situation. When your own brother, the one who shares your blood, your story, your struggle, has the power to save you but chooses not to, that pain cuts deeper than any knife. It's not just sadness, it's betrayal mixed with confusion and heartbreak. That's the storm Bway is sitting in right now. He's probably replaying every moment in his head, wondering what he did wrong, asking himself, why doesn't my brother care anymore? Because to him, this isn't about money. It's about love, about loyalty, about being seen. The tragedy in all this is that Bway is still loyal to YoungBoy, even after being left behind. That's the twisted thing about family. You can get hurt by the same people you'd still die for. Even from his cell, Bway's probably still defending his big brother to others, saying, "He gon' come through for me. He just got a lot going on right now, but every court date that passes without help." Every moment he sits there beside a public defender while watching his brother on Instagram, flashing new cars and million-dollar jewelry. It chips away at what little hope he has left. Each day that goes by is another piece of his heart breaking quietly, realizing that maybe the loyalty he feels isn't mutual anymore. And this right here? This is where things shift from emotional to psychological. Because being abandoned by family doesn't just hurt your heart, it rewires how you see the world. It makes you question love itself. Now, here's the real kicker. This entire situation shows how YoungBoy's mindset has changed. He's not thinking like a brother anymore. He's thinking like a businessman. In business, you invest in what gives you a return. You spend on people who contribute to your success. You move with logic, not emotion. And somewhere along the way, YoungBoy started applying that same mentality to his personal life. To him, helping Bway might not make business sense. Maybe he thinks his brother's too much of a risk. That getting involved could bring legal heat or bad press. Maybe he thinks Bway needs to learn to stand on his own. But that's not how family works. Family ain't about profit and loss. It's about unconditional support, especially when someone's in their darkest moment. Bway shouldn't have to earn help. He shouldn't have to prove his worth to his own blood. If anything, YoungBoy's millions should have made it easier to show love, not harder. But instead, success has twisted his perspective to where compassion looks like weakness and loyalty looks like liability. And that's the heartbreaking irony why the same streets that raised YoungBoy on loyalty are now watching him fail the ultimate loyalty test. This whole thing is like a moral exam, and the results aren't looking good. When someone you love is in real trouble, when their life, freedom, and sanity are on the line, that's when character gets exposed. And right now, the image of NBA YoungBoy the realist is cracking in front of everyone. The people in Baton Rouge, the fans, the streets, they see it. They see the difference between helping strangers for clout and helping your brother for love. They see how far YoungBoy's drifted from the codes that once defined him, because it's easy to talk about loyalty in a song. It's easy to rap about standing 10 toes down for your people. But when it's your own brother sitting in a cell, begging for a real lawyer, that's when your words get tested. And this right here, this is the test YoungBoy's failing miserably. Money and fame have built a wall around him so tall, he can't even see how far he's drifted from the person he used to be. The kid who once swore he'd never forget where he came from is now proving that success can change your soul if you let it. The loyalty test doesn't care how many plaques you've got or how big your house is. It cares about whether you show up when it matters most, when no one's watching, when it costs you nothing but compassion. And right now, the world is watching YoungBoy's every move, not just as a rapper, but as a man, as a brother, as someone who claimed to live by loyalty. Because at the end of the day, fame fades, music slows down, fans move on, but blood stays forever. And if you can't stand by your blood when they need you most, what does never broke again even mean? The people in NBA YoungBoy's inner circle, the ones living in his mansions, riding in his cars, flashing his money, they're all passing his version of the loyalty test. Why? Because they make him feel good. They feed his ego. They're part of his new reality, a world built on fame, control, and comfort. But his brother, Bway Youngie, the one who represents the dirt, the pain, the trauma, and the old life he's running from? In YoungBoy's eyes, he's failing the test. See, Bway doesn't bring him peace, he brings him reminders. Reminders of when they had nothing, of the danger, of the legal troubles, of everything YoungBoy is trying to bury under money and fame. And instead of facing that past, YoungBoy's choosing to pretend it doesn't exist. But here's what YoungBoy doesn't understand. The real loyalty test ain't about who makes your life easier. It's about who you show up for when they can't do a single thing for you in return. And by that standard, YoungBoy is failing hard, not just as a brother, but as a man. Because when your own blood is crying out for help and you look the other way, that says everything about your character. The streets understand that even if YoungBoy doesn't. That's why people are side-eyeing him now, questioning his realness, his principles, and the authenticity that once made him untouchable. If you can't pass the loyalty test with your own brother, how can anyone else trust you to be loyal to them? And that's where things start to unravel, the ripple effect. How this scandal is damaging. YoungBoy's reputation, this whole situation with Bway. Youngie is becoming more than family drama. It's turning into a credibility crisis. The streets are whispering, social media's buzzing, and that solid, real one image YoungBoy spent years building is cracking right in front of everyone. The narrative's changing fast. What used to be, YoungBoy's loyal, he never switched up, is now sounding more like, YoungBoy forgot where he came from. And let's be real, when your brand is built on authenticity, forgetting your roots is career suicide. Because the people who made you hot, the ones who bought your albums, who screamed your name in the hood, they didn't love you for your fame. They loved you because they saw themselves in you, the pain, the struggle, the loyalty. So when they see you abandoning your blood brother, they start wondering, was any of it real? If you can lie to yourself about family, if you can preach loyalty in your songs while ignoring your brother's calls, what else are you lying about? And that's the scary part. This whole mess didn't even have to happen. YoungBoy could have fixed it easily. He could have quietly hired Bway, a top lawyer, paid for his defense and kept it private. No posts, no drama, no headlines, just a simple act of brotherhood. But instead, he did nothing, and that silence turned into a public embarrassment. Now the same streets that crowned him real are watching him fall from grace, saying he switched up on his own blood. The industry perspective, how hip-hop sees it in the hip-hop world. Family loyalty isn't just personal, it's power. Artists who take care of their people are respected, even by rivals. It's what makes you untouchable in street politics. But abandoning your brother, that's a stain that doesn't fade. In this culture, that's the kind of move that makes people stop trusting you. Not just in the streets, but in the boardrooms too. When other rappers and industry heads see this story, they're not just thinking about morals, they're thinking about pattern recognition. If you'll turn your back on blood, what's stopping you from turning your back on your team? On your business partners? On anyone who helped you rise? Because in hip-hop, loyalty equals leverage. And once that loyalty is questioned, your power starts to slip. Street politics. What Baton Rouge is saying. The hood has a saying. How you treat your family is how you'll treat the world. And that's exactly what people in Baton Rouge are asking right now. If YoungBoy can abandon his own flesh and blood, what does that say about his loyalty to his friends, his fans, or his city? The whispers are growing louder. Is his loyalty conditional? Does it only apply to people who make him money? That's dangerous territory, especially for someone whose entire image is rooted in street credibility. Because once the streets label you fake, that's it. No amount of success can buy that respect back. And the worst part? This whole situation is giving his enemies ammunition. Rappers who've been waiting to take shots now have fresh fuel. Bloggers are dragging his name through the mud. The same media that once hyped his rise is now highlighting his silence toward his own brother. Because no matter how much money you make, no matter how far you go, abandoning blood always comes back to haunt you. People who already didn't like NBA YoungBoy now got a real reason to question his entire character. Because before it was just rumors and opinions, but now they can point straight to how he's treated his own brother and say, see, he's not as real as he claims to be. And here's the truth, fam. In the streets, once your loyalty gets questioned, you can lose everything that money can't buy. Respect, credibility, authenticity, gone in a flash. YoungBoy might think this situation doesn't matter because he's rich and famous. But what he doesn't understand is that street credibility is the foundation of his empire. It's the reason people listen, the reason fans relate, the reason the hood ever crowned him real in the first place. When that image cracks, it's not just about losing fans. It's about losing respect. And in the world he came from, that's worse than losing money. The psychological transformation. How success rewired. YoungBoy's mind. Let's break down what really happened to YoungBoy mentally. Because this type of transformation is something that happens to a lot of people who make it out of poverty. When you go from having nothing to having everything, it doesn't just change your lifestyle. It changes your brain chemistry, your priorities, your definition of loyalty. YoungBoy probably started looking at his old life, and everyone tied to it, as a threat to his peace. He spent years surrounded by violence, betrayal, and loss. So when success finally hit, he didn't just want out, he wanted distance. And guess what? In his mind, Bway Youngie represents all of that chaos. The street life, the drama, The court cases, the danger, all the stuff he's been running from since he got that first $1 million check. So instead of pulling his brother out of that world, he's cutting him off, convincing himself that's the only way to protect his new life. But that's the cruel irony. In trying to escape his past, he's abandoning the one person who lived that past with him. And this is where the psychology of success gets dangerous. There's a common pattern where people who make it out start to believe they deserve their success more than others deserve help. It's this quiet voice that says, I worked for this. I suffered for this. I earned this. Why should I risk it for someone else's mistakes? And that's exactly what's happening here. YoungBoy's telling himself that helping Bway would be a bad investment, that it's too risky, too messy, too connected to the old version of him. He's treating his own blood like a PR liability instead of a brother who needs help. But family isn't a business decision. You don't calculate loyalty. You live it. Success made him forget that simple truth. It blinded him to the values that made him powerful. The same values he raps about in every track: loyalty, struggle, survival, and keeping it real. Those principles built his name, but now he's breaking every one of them to protect a lifestyle that doesn't even match his lyrics anymore. The comparison, how real ones handle family loyalty. What makes this whole situation even worse is when you look around at other rappers who actually live what they preach. Take Lil Baby, for example. When one of his people gets jammed up, he's there, paying for lawyers, helping their families, making sure nobody who rode for him ever feels abandoned. No public show, no social media stunts, just quiet, real support. Then look at Jay-Z. That man has built an empire off the idea that you don't just escape the hood, you bring your people with you. He's helped friends get out of legal trouble, paid for lawyers, bailed out protesters, all because he knows what power is meant for. Even Drake and Future, they might flex fame and success, but they've never been caught publicly neglecting their families. They understand that taking care of your own is not a burden, it's a privilege. But YoungBoy? He's out here treating his brother like a stranger, like some forgotten footnote in his biography. The same kid who once stood beside him, who risked his own life when they were both living rough, now doesn't even get a phone call or a dollar toward his defense. That's not just cold, that's against the code. Because in the streets, family loyalty isn't optional. It's sacred. It's the foundation that keeps a man's name clean even when everything else falls apart. And now, the very people who used to scream, "YoungBoy real," are starting to whisper, he switched up. The tragedy is clear. Success didn't just elevate NBA YoungBoy, it mutated him. It took that fearless kid from Baton Rouge and turned him into a man who moves like the world owes him something. And in the process, he's forgetting that the real ones never measure loyalty by what they get back. They measure it by what they're willing to give. The comparison makes NBA YoungBoy look even worse because it proves what people are already whispering, that other artists can make it big and still stay loyal to their blood. It's not like helping Bway Youngie would bankrupt him or ruin his career. It wouldn't even dent his pockets, but it would have done something priceless. It would have proven that loyalty still meant something. Instead, YoungBoy chose silence, and that silence is louder than any diss track, louder than any platinum record he's ever dropped. Because real ones know, doing the right thing doesn't need an audience, it just needs a heart. The long-term consequences. The damage can't be undone. What YoungBoy doesn't realize is that this situation with Bway is going to leave scars that don't heal. Not next year. Not in 5 years, maybe not ever. When family bonds break like this, it's not just a small rift. It's a permanent wound. Even if one day YoungBoy wakes up with guilt and decides to help his brother, the damage is already done. Because Bway will never forget how it felt to sit in that cold cell, fighting for his freedom with a public defender, while his millionaire brother was out buying new cars for friends and jewelry for people who didn't even know him back then. He'll remember every court date where he walked in shackled, knowing that the outcome could have been different if just one person, his own brother, had stepped up. He'll remember scrolling through the news, seeing YoungBoy smiling in million-dollar interviews while he's struggling to get basic representation. And you can't erase that kind of pain. That's the kind of memory that turns into resentment, the kind that eats at you from the inside for years. Even if Bway forgives him someday, he'll never forget. Family fallout. When one decision breaks a bloodline, this isn't just about two brothers. It's about what happens to the entire family. Because once one person breaks that bond, everyone else feels it. You think other relatives ain't watching this go down. They see it too, and they're asking themselves, if he can abandon his brother, what makes us any different? This creates a ripple effect, a chain of doubt that spreads through the whole bloodline. Now everyone starts to wonder who's next to get left behind when things get tough. YoungBoy might think he's protecting himself from drama by staying away. But in reality, he's isolating himself from the very people who truly love him. The ones who were there before the fame, before the awards, before the millions. Because success without family loyalty? That's not peace. That's expensive loneliness. You can have 20 cars, 10 mansions, and 100 people in your crew, but none of them will love you the way blood does. And once that blood loyalty is gone, it's gone for good. Street memory. How Baton Rouge will remember this. Let's be real. The streets don't forget. Even if YoungBoy keeps dropping hits, even if his albums go #1, this stain on his reputation will stay. In hip-hop, loyalty isn't a topic, it's a code. It's the foundation of how people judge you as a man. And now, every time someone brings up his name in Baton Rouge, this story's going to come up too. Yeah, he rich, but he let his brother rot. That's the kind of line that follows you forever. The kind that makes even your biggest fans question your heart. Because people don't care about how many awards you've got. They care about whether you stood on your word when it mattered most. And for someone like YoungBoy, who built his brand on being real, losing that credibility hits harder than any loss of fame ever could. The cost of forgetting family. At the end of the day, this whole story ain't just about YoungBoy and Bway. It's a reflection of what happens when success blinds you to the people who helped shape you. When the hunger for peace turns into coldness toward your own blood. YoungBoy has everything he ever dreamed of. Money, fame, recognition, respect. But he's losing something far greater, his legacy of loyalty. Because when people look back on his story years from now, they won't just talk about his music. They'll talk about how he treated his family. And that's a stain no award can cover. He's trading blood loyalty for business relationships, and that trade never works out long term. You can replace friends, rebuild a team, or drop new hits, but you can't replace your brother. Right now, Bway Youngie is sitting in a cell with a public defender, fighting for his life, while his millionaire brother spends money on every luxury the world can offer. Except the one thing that could actually save him, a lawyer. That's the moment that defines who you are. When you have the power to help someone who can't offer you anything in return, and you still choose to do it out of love. But when you don't, that's when success becomes hollow. That's when every diamond, every dollar, every car starts to lose its shine. Because at the end of it all, when the music stops and the lights fade, all you've really got is your name and your loyalty. And if you lose those, you've already lost everything that mattered.